Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Facebook Live interview with MS Insight. I'm Erica Anderson, your host, and I'm talking today with Heather Torphy. Heather, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I recently started working at MS Insight. Well, we're new, so everyone sort of started recently working at MS Insight. For those of you that are watching, and Heather and I were sort of connected in high school. We had a lot of mutual acquaintances, I think, and sort of you discovered, what was it you saw that I interviewed somebody that you followed in the MS world, and you were like, wait a second.
Yeah, so one day I was just scrolling on my Instagram and Erica was there and she was interviewing Amber Rose. And so I was like, oh my gosh, there's two people from my world. They're connected and they're connected through MS. And I'm newly diagnosed. I was diagnosed in late April, early May of 2020. And I'm just trying to find my place in this world of MS. I'm trying to be a good patient, but a good advocate. And so I reached out and I was like, oh, okay, if two people that I know are talking about this, this is a great resource.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad that you did. And a lot of people that are on this page and that we're speaking to are newly diagnosed. We have a lot of people that are just sort of stepping into a world they never expected to be a part of. And so that's sort of what you're living right now. So tell us the genesis of it. Like, what made you suspect something was wrong? And then what happened from there?
Okay, well, let me first start off by saying I suspected nothing was wrong until something was very wrong. So, as I mentioned, I was diagnosed in late April, early May of 2020. At that time, I was in South Carolina working for a university and I was teaching online. I remember very specifically, it was a Monday morning and I was teaching via Zoom, so I could see my face on the screen. And that Monday, I was smiling to the students, or I thought I was smiling. But I looked and my face appeared as if I had been to the dentist. So I had right side facial paralysis. And so my smile was crooked. And I was like, what is going on? I'm going to finish this class and then I'm going to figure this out. So I thought, ironically enough, at that time, I was also in the middle of an IVF treatment. So I thought I had been experiencing some headaches due to the hormones. And so I was just going to call my provider and see if this could possibly be a side effect. I immediately did that after class had ended, and they said, absolutely not. This is not a side effect of hormones. You need to go to a provider immediately. So I contacted my husband. I said, I think we're having a medical emergency.
Oh my gosh.
He came immediately. We left for the emergency room. Again, this is in the midst of COVID. So he knew when he dropped me off that he wasn't going to be able to be a part of this. So I went into the ER. I told them what was happening, and they admitted me immediately. And so we were trying to rule out what this could be. We thought stroke. So we did CAT scans. They also thought maybe Bell's palsy.
Yeah.
Because at the time I had only had right side facial paralysis. So in the midst of my ER admission, I also started to develop blurred vision, and then it became double vision. So we did CAT scan, we did blood work, everything turned out fine, nothing showed up. They did an MRI, and the hospitalist and the neurologist came back almost immediately and said, you have lesions on both sides of your brain. This appears as if it's MS. We're going to treat it as if it's MS. We want to admit you. So I was admitted into the hospital, again, immediately. I was put on IV steroids. I stayed there for 5 days. At that point, we also did additional blood work just to rule some other things out. And we did a spinal tap. And that also indicated infection and so signs of MS. So all of these things led to it. It happened very quickly. But as I mentioned, prior to that Monday, I had no symptoms.
That's so crazy.
That I knew of.
And wait, what month did you say it was?
Late April.
Okay, so yeah, that's so recent. And so, I mean, so when you heard that the first time that they said MS, Like, what did your mind do? Because for me, like not before I worked here, I would have had no idea. Like, I would have been like, I know I've heard of it, but I really don't know what that means.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I have a sister-in-law. She's wonderful, Danielle, but she has MS and she was diagnosed about 4 years ago. So I knew what it was, um, but I didn't know. Like, I knew she had it. I knew the symptoms that she experienced and I knew her story, but I didn't realize what the disease was. And so when they told me, I think I was kind of in shock. And I was like, okay, so you're telling me that this is happening. What does this mean for my life? And
Mm-hmm.
I think something great, my story, something great out of it compared to some other stories that I've heard from other individuals. All the providers that I met were very positive. They
Yeah.
all said, okay, this looks like MS. We're going to treat it as if it's MS, but this does not mean what it meant 20 or 30 years ago. You're going to be okay. You're going to be able to have a life. You're going to be able to function. We want you to consider this a marathon and not a sprint. So please be patient with us. But this is a very livable disease, and we're going to help you through this.
Oh, that's good. I mean, you need doctors to speak that way, especially in that moment. So much of what I've heard is just that people say, well, and unfortunately with COVID, like you said, your husband couldn't even come in with you, but a lot of people in the community have said, like, when you're talking to the doctors, make sure you bring someone with you because there's a lot of information. And sorry about that door slam. If you
No,
guys
it's okay.
heard that child running up against my door, we're doing it live, everybody. So anyway, yeah, just that how, because you sort of, your head is rushed with information, but I think that security and that, just that, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like the doctors reassuring you, like, it's going to be okay. Did that really help you a lot?
It really did. I had a plethora of doctors come in, and they all, I think they all had really great bedside table manners. They did everything a doctor's supposed to. They sat down. They were at my eye level. They allowed me to speak for the first few minutes, but they were very informative. And they also said, we're giving you a lot of information right now. So if you have your cell phone on you, if you want to record these conversations so you can review back to them, I feel very lucky that I had a really great group of providers. And I have since then. I've heard of, some folks with COVID not being able to seek treatment for many, many weeks, if not months. It might have been the region that I was in. I'm not sure, but I was diagnosed, like I said, late April, early May. I had, a follow-up with a neurologist from the hospital after I was discharged. I also had a specialist that I was sent to. Unfortunately, one of the things that did not go away immediately after I was discharged from the hospital was my eyesight. So I had blurred vision and I had double vision to the fact that, or to the point that it impacted my functioning. I was not able to drive. So they sent me to a specialist in Charleston, and, having to even see her via Zoom, they were just really great advocates for a new patient. And they gave me, a lot of options for autonomy and having a sense and a presence in my treatment options. And that was great. I was also put on treatment relatively soon. I think I started my treatment the 1st of June. And so I was put on Tecfidera, which is an oral medication. And I was immediately put on that, opposed to an infusion, because it just so happens that my life, we were moving across the country. So they wanted to make sure that I had options for sustainable treatment until I could get reestablished in a certain area.
Right.
And so even at that, I was able to get reestablished, in Indiana, and I'm starting on an infusion next week.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch on you're saying the doctor said, oh, it's not like it was 20 years ago. And I spoke with another person about this week, just how great it is, the technology and the medication and all the processes that have improved so much, like even in the past 10 years. It's really encouraging for people to know that those options are out there, and there's just so much more sort of positive things to look forward to when you get that diagnosis. Now, so you said the double vision stayed. Did the facial paralysis stay as well, or did that clear up?
So luckily that cleared up. So I can smile from both sides of my
Yeah,
mouth
I
now.
can see that now. Yes.
That did clear up, and yeah, that cleared up within the first 5 days of being on IV steroids in the hospital. And so
and have you had other symptoms?
um, so hindsight's 2020. So now we can look back and we can say, oh, that was actually a symptom, or that was actually MS. Something that I deal with today, the biggest thing is fatigue. And I know that so many people say that. It's super annoying.
But it's true. I mean, that's one of the most common things.
It is. And I have a really great support system. So if I say I need a nap, then I'm napping and nobody bugs me. But the other thing that I experience is numbness and tingling in my arms. And that is due to a lesion in my neck. But it just kind of depends on if I'm sitting at a certain angle or if I'm laying down at a certain angle. I do experience that. But it's not terrible at this point, thank goodness. And it's not debilitating. I can adjust myself and it will reduce.
Did it, I know you mentioned you were in the middle of an IVF cycle. Were you able to continue that, or did you have to put a hold on that?
So fortunately or unfortunately, we did have to stop the cycle. And it wasn't necessarily due to anything with the MS per se. I unfortunately had a botched IVF.
Oh no!
I'm sorry, an IV.
Oh, okay, got it.
And so the blood clot and the aftermath of that bad IV. It wasn't safe to continue on with the hormones at that time.
Okay, yeah, that's just kind of a perfect storm of bad timing.
Yeah,
man, 2020. We do not like you, 2020.
Right. If the pandemic wasn't enough, some of us are getting diagnosed with MS.
Yeah, I talked to another girl that I spoke with a few weeks ago or a month ago or so. She had, I think, similar timing, or it was earlier this year. So, so you're not alone in that. But it sounds like you sort of immediately started to seek out some kind of community, at least online. Is that sort of your personality, to reach out to people?
Yes and no. I wanted to reach out. So by nature, I'm an introvert, and I do tend to keep to myself. But I also feel I'm just a normal person, and it sounds so cliche, but if this can happen to me, it's happening to other people, and I think it's really important that we all have our voice, and that we all share our experiences, just so we can get through this together. The highs and the lows, the goods and the bad. I think it's just important. And, as I mentioned earlier, my sister-in-law is wonderful, and she told me her story. And she said a lot of comments of, I wish somebody would have said this to me. So if you're ever in this situation, you handle it the way you want to, but I wish somebody would have shared this with me. So I just think it's important that we share our voice.
Yeah, I think so too, because you really just never know. Like, I would have never known that about you. And there's probably a lot of people maybe that are watching this video now, if you are sharing it with friends and family, maybe are hearing about it for the first time. And it really just builds so many healthy connections. And it's, it is cliche to say, like, share your story or whatever, but honestly, like, that vulnerability is really healthy for you and for, like, just the community around you. Just to feel like things are allowed to be talked about. And connection is one of the most important things. I mean, mental health is one of the things that we talk about a lot here, because the mental health side of things is really a huge part of it. I mean, people that are diagnosed with MS, I learned this week, have, I think it was a 50% higher chance or a 50% chance or something of developing depression. Do not quote me on that statistic. I will get that for those that are watching. It's something like that. So have you dealt with anything like that? Are you feeling down or anxious? Or how are you dealing with the mental health side?
Right now, I think because I'm so new to all of this, I'm still experiencing it. And,
Yeah.
I might still be in shock. I'm not sure, but I am good. But I do attribute that to a great support system, having an ability to not be afraid to speak up and say, hey, I have this and I might need something because of this. You know, we just moved to back home to Indiana, and, working with new employment and just feeling like you're in a safe place to even tell your employer, hey, I'm newly diagnosed. Um, these are my symptoms that I'm experiencing. If you notice something, let me know. Just as an example, I needed a day off to go get an infusion,
Hmm.
and we were able to work through that. So just being able to be a good advocate for yourself, for me personally, that helps my mental health. Um, Also, just have a lot of practices of self care, and I think that that's super important to maintain a healthy mental state.
Hmm. Well, I would like to hear what some of those are. I love a little self-care list.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, one of my biggest symptoms is fatigue. And so if I'm not drinking enough water or eating correctly, I will go straight into fatigue and a headache, and I'm done for the day. But with that, ever since I've got out of the hospital, I've walked regularly. And it's really been a great activity for me to understand where my endurance is and how am I feeling, and to give myself that kind of mindfulness check. Um, I'm also a huge yogi. So
Hmm.
practicing yoga gives me, again, kind of that mind body balance check of what's tight, what's not. Am I in a bad mood? Can I do the breathing
Yeah.
peacefully or not peacefully that day?
Yeah.
And then weightlifting. And I know that sounds crazy to some, but it really is important, just to try to maintain that endurance and that stamina and that strength. I can do it right now, so I do. But the weeks that I can't, it's okay. And you just have to give yourself grace. And one of the things, as I mentioned before, that the doctors told me is this is going to be a marathon of your life.
Right.
So give yourself grace. Don't consider anything a sprint. So if I can't do something one week, it's okay. I take a deep breath and I'll try to hit it the next week.
Yeah, I was going to ask sort of what not to get too big picture, but when you're thinking about looking down the road, like what have you thought about, or have the doctors given you any kind of a timeline? I know so much is uncertain when it comes to MS, so you may not have a lot of details, but have you thought further down the road?
Absolutely. I think we all do. Repeatedly. It's a constant thought, um, because you're not sure. I personally have relapse remitting MS.
Hmm.
So I don't know when the next relapse is going to happen, and I don't know what area it's going to affect. So the one that I was hospitalized for, it affected my vision primarily. I have no clue what the next one is going to do.
Mm.
So it's always kind of a thought in the back of your mind. My doctors have asked that I continue with the healthy habits. They've also encouraged um, an aggressive treatment approach. Um, and so I'll be transferring to an infusion. And the reason why they asked that I do that is because they mentioned the size and the location of where my lesions are at. And
Mm.
so, whether I'm repeating this correctly or not, I'm not sure, but they said, um, let's go ahead and do this approach. We want to be aggressive. The less amount of relapse you have and that we can address, the less amount of disability that you will obtain throughout the years. And
Okay.
so they've asked to do more of an aggressive approach in treatment, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Um, so it sounded more reassuring.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like that's where I would go to. I'd be like, more aggressive sounds good. Sounds like you're going to do a better job.
Yeah.
That's how I would feel about it.
Yeah.
Well, do you have anything in your life? I always like to ask people, like, what's a positive sort of foundation in your life? Like, where do you draw positivity from, or how do you sort of stay grounded in the moment?
So, interestingly enough, probably about 6 months before I was diagnosed, I found this habit, this gratitude habit. It's actually from Joy and Claire. They're an
The
Instagram.
podcast?
Yeah, the podcast.
Oh my gosh, I have been listening to that for years. I love
Yes,
them.
I love them.
So Joy and Claire, we'll tag them.
So Claire does this, and sometimes she'll post it on her Instagram feed. But she just identifies 3 things that she's grateful for that day.
Yes, I follow her on Instagram like religiously, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it works.
Yes.
So, even the days that I was at home and I couldn't see, I would focus on what I could do, and I focused on the positive things. So I was familiar with my home and I could unload the dishwasher.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. I got up and I did that. And if I didn't experience fatigue afterwards, that was a positive. But I think throughout this time, um, and when you're talking about MS in general, we don't know what today's going to bring, and we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So if we could focus on the positives and be mindful of and be appreciative of what we do have, that's one way that I stay grounded and that I stay positive through it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think, so many of the simplest things are really the basic things that have to be done and need to be done. And just on another level, like I've been doing a similar kind of thing lately and getting into yoga and breathing and all of these things. And I kind of thought, sometimes you see people making fun, oh, she's doing the breathing, or like, oh, she's hippy dippy, or she's woo woo. You hear people say things like that, but it's like, no, like people that are doing that stuff really, they're onto something. That's where their peace comes from. And until you actually really start doing some things like that on a consistent basis, like you don't understand like the power that can have over your, whole body wellness. So I think those are really awesome suggestions. And at that, Heather, thank you for sharing your story with us. I'm sure that it's going to help somebody to hear another person that really feels like they're not alone now. And that's really the whole point of this community and what we want to bring to the MS community. So thank you so much. And I will add, once I hit stop on this recording, if it kicks you off, that is not supposed to happen. So, so it's not like me just kicking you off, but it does happen sometimes. So thank you so much. And please stay in touch.
Okay. Thank you so much.